Richie, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You've been doing a lot of press, and, you know, obviously you've been doing press for many, many years. And I've got to just start out by asking, like, what is one question that you get asked so much, if you hear it again, you'll kick something or somebody or whatever?
There's a couple weird ones. I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is, you know, people ask me as a guitar player, they say, well, why did you stop using a guitar pick? And it kind of drives me a little nuts, because from my perspective, there's, you know, tons of guitar players that, you know, play without a pick, you know, and it's like, I guess, I don't know, maybe because when I started playing, you know, I didn't do much finger style, so maybe that's why. But after a while, it's kind of maddening. Why do you play with your fingers? Well, I mean, what do you want me to use? If I'm not using my fingers, well, how am I going to play the instrument? But I mean, I know what they mean. They're talking about the pick, but yeah, it's kind of it's a maddening question.
But it's like, how do you actually even describe that? Do you know what you know what I mean? You're like, because I don't. I basically.
Here we are. Actually, that was very clever what you did, because you're asking me the question that I don't like, and I'm actually answering it. So that was very sneaky of you. But to describe it, I basically tell people that I wasn't happy with the way I sounded. I didn't feel very inspired, and so I had one show that I did in Brazil, and I decided, let me try and do this without a guitar pick and see what I sound like, and then it all kind of evolved from there. So now, see, I just answered my least favorite question on your podcast.
See, and you did it kind of joyfully because you weren't asked it, you know?
Yeah, you're pretty clever. I gotta give it credit.
I wouldn't put that to a vote, man. But you know, you're celebrating like half a century, man, with the new album. You know, 50 for 50. Man, 50 songs. That's a lot of fucking songs, man. Like, that's more than I write in like 5 years, man. You know, so like, were these songs written over the span of like years, or am I underestimating your ability to write quickly?
Well, I'll tell you exactly how it came to be. I had finished what would have been a normal record sometime last year. So maybe it's 10 or 12 songs. And then there actually were 5 songs that I had finished and mastered with the intent to release it. I never released them. I don't really know why, but 2 of those songs are the oldest compositions on the record, and they date as far back as 2000, 2001. And so at that point, I thought, well, I'm going to put those out too. So I think that put me at like 16 songs or something like that. And so when I was on the road, I was going through all this archived material, things that were not finished, you know, ideas. Some things were actually all they needed was a lead vocal, and then other things were just nothing more than a bass guitar and a click track. And I thought to myself, well, let me see how many of these I can finish. And so I started working on them, and then as I started working on those songs, I started getting ideas for brand new songs. So it kind of snowballed. And then something clicked, and I thought to myself, wow, you know, I am turning 50, and normally I don't really give a shit about birthdays. I don't really tell anybody or talk about it, but I thought, you know, 50 is kind of a big one. So
that's a milestone, thought, man. Wow.
Yeah, right. So I thought, if I could put out a record with 50 songs on my birthday, and not a compilation record. You know, a lot of times you can put out a record with a lot of songs, and it's, you know, remasters and remixes and all that. Right. But this is obviously all new material, new in the sense that you've never heard it before. And so I thought, well, if I can pull this off, it might be kind of interesting. And so I came off the road. I had about 3.5 months, and during that time, you know, I went in the studio and I hit my mark. I didn't really announce it until I got to, like, I don't know, maybe 35, 34 songs, and then I thought, okay, well, I'm probably going to get to 50. I mean, I still have a lot of more ideas that, you know, I could have did 60 probably, but, you know, then I would be like in a madhouse somewhere because by the time I stopped this, I didn't want to even get near a guitar or a studio or anything.
Well, if you have 60 songs, just re-release this one in 10 years and then just add another 10 songs, so that should be less work for you.
Right. I mean, I know when I finished this, I actually said to anyone that would listen, I said, this is the last record I'm ever going to make. I will never make another record of any kind, because I had just put my all into it, and I love the record. I think it's the best representation of me as an artist. But now I'm back again, and I'm working on some new material with a friend of mine. So, it's just what you do, I guess.
I think one of the things I love about the album, and yes, I actually did digest the entire album over like the course of 3 days or so. And one of the things that hit me the most with the album, other than the fact that I absolutely love it, was that it runs the gamut of. It's like a roller coaster of emotions, and vibes. You've got everything from, the dark and brooding to the mad and angry to the upbeat. I've noticed some of the things times you utilized more of an electronic kind of aspect to it with like drum machines or whatever, and then all of a sudden they'd be like this really live band sound to it. Would you say that this album kind of, especially being, like you said, 50 years, kind of covers all of the different moods, or many of them, that you've experienced in your life over the past year?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and that's what I like about it. I mean, some of this stuff I probably never finished because I just didn't know where it fit. When you're making a record, a standard record, 10, 12 songs, sometimes a song like, This House, for example, which is the last track, it might not make sense on a record like Into the Black, which is one of my solo records. But
right.
That's what I like about this, is I had that kind of flexibility of, anything. The only variable was like if I like it. Like, in other words, I didn't have to think, oh, that's a cool song, but it sounds a little too country and western to put out on a record that's primarily rock. With this record, I was really able to just focus on each composition and say, all right, do I like this? Do I want to share this or not? And that's really what I did. I just kind of looked at it like, if I liked the song and I thought it represented a part of me, then I would put it out.
So, I mean, obviously, this is a lot of music to digest, especially as like a casual fan, or not even a casual fan, but just a fan of music in general. Is there a way that you would like, or that you would like your audience to listen to this album? Like, do you kind of go at it and go, the best way to listen to it is sequentially? Or do you say something like the best way to do it would be to put it on shuffle or something? So how do you envision people actually listening to it? I
mean, in the end, I don't really care that much how someone approaches it, because at one point when I was trying to sequence it, I thought to myself that it was unsequenceable because of, I would hear a song, say, oh, I want to put that up top, or, oh, I like that one. But really, I think in the end, if someone asked me like you're asking, I would say listen to it disc by disc. I think that's the best way. I think I did take time to sequence it, and there were considerations in the sequence, and so I would suggest pop disc 1 on and just go through it and treat that as one long album, and then move on to the second and third one. That's pretty much what I would do.
I mean, there's definitely a flow to the album, kind of very much like you said. I can tell listening to it that you really put some time into the sequencing and coming up with the idea of the flow. How long did that take you? Did you go through? I mean, having to go through 50 songs and trying to figure out like some sort of flow. At some point, did you just say, "Oh fuck it, I'm just gonna put them in order," or how was that process?
I knew what I wanted to open with. Like, Stick the Knife was always going to be the opener because it just the way it plays, it just sounds like an opener. It sounds like an opener to a live show, and I thought it was a great way to open the record. And then the last song, "This House," I figured that would work well there at the very end, because it's has kind of a creepy, kind of haunting thing about it, and it's a good way to end. But one of the tricky things was the fact that you can only fit a certain amount of music on a disc, and so one of the attempts I did to sequence it, I had like 10 minutes of empty space, and then I couldn't fit the other material. And then I tried again on the first disc, and then it was over by a minute and a half. So that kind of became a little bit of a math challenge to get that to work. And then, I guess that was really it. I know that I kind of front-loaded the first disc with more of the funkier songs, which, is a lot of fun for me to write and play that kind of stuff. There's a lot of I don't know. There's a lot of cool bass stuff on the record. I had a great time, with the bass guitar. I did more bass solos on this record than anything I've ever done.
Which, by the way, is fantastic. The work on that was just great.
What's that?
The bass work was fantastic. So I had to give you a nod for that. Like, I just loved all that.
Well, I've been lucky. I've always been surrounded by great musicians, and specifically great bass players. Obviously I played with Billy Shehan and Stanley Clarke and T.M. Stevens, who played with Miles Davis, and I had the privilege of doing a record with Bernie Worrell, keyboard player in Parliament Funkadelic, and all those fantastic keyboard bass lines that he did. So I definitely have my influences when it comes to the bass guitar.
It's kind of funny you were talking about, opening the live show with like the first song on the album and everything. And with that, going into that, I mean, obviously you're not going to do a 50-song set. So but how are you going to decide what songs to actually pull into the live set? Are you going to do like a rotating set list? Or are you only going to be pulling, say a few to kind of mix it up with some of the older stuff?
Yeah. It's funny. In the old days, like, I had my band, and we had played together so long and knew so much material, and I used to call tunes. And for years, I didn't even put a set list together. I just say what we were going to open with, and then from there, I just kind of read the room and call out tunes. And then we had segues that were worked out. So it was a very, it was not a typical rock and roll approach. And then on one of the tours, I had like 3 variations during the show. I had the power trio electric thing, and then we had an acoustic section, and then we had a piano section where I sat behind the electric piano and did 4 or 5 songs. So that forced me into a set list, and so I've kept that, moving forward. So to answer your question, there's definitely songs that are in my repertoire that translate well live, and that my fan base expects me to play, and I like playing. So, songs like Remember and Help Me and Doing What the Devil Says to Do and You Can't Save Me, they translate well live, and those songs are some of my most downloaded or played songs on Spotify or what have you. So those are in the set. And I think for the new record, I'll have to pick songs that I think will translate well to a power trio. I mean, obviously Devil's Hand, we performed that a few weeks ago on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and that went over really well.
Great song.
What's that?
That's a great song. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, so, maybe we'll do 4 or 5 songs from the new record. The idea of switching it up is a nice idea, but the reality is, I want to be able to really get inside these songs live, and to do that, you really want to, to play a song once and then never play it again is kind of strange to me. Just, a lot of these songs, like Help Me, for example, which is a song off my record, 24 Hours.
Yes,
it's evolved into something so different than what was on the record, and in a weird way, it's something so much better. And the reason that happened is because the song has been played now 100 times, or performed. So I think I'll just figure what songs, stick in my head and which ones translate well as a 3-piece. I could see doing Dogs off the new record.
Yes.
That would sound great.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I caught you guys when you were here in Atlanta at the City Winery show. And one of the things that I was so blown away about is exactly what you were just saying about how even some of the older songs really translated into that kind of trio lineup. Did it take some rearranging to kind of make it work, or does it fall in naturally with the trio?
Well, I think it falls in pretty naturally. I mean, it comes down to really me being able to sing and deliver the song. And because, some of these songs, I get pretty deep into the production with, harmonies and layered vocals and percussion and some of the keyboard stuff that's on there that you don't even really realize. But when you strip a song down, you should be able to really get out there with just an acoustic guitar and play the darn thing, and it should be able to translate. So that's kind of the approach. This is the song, this is the melody, these are the lyrics, this is the tempo, this is the feel. Now let's try and play it. And then, if we get to a section, like oftentimes, like maybe we'd get to a section where on the record there was more production, and I would change it. So instead of trying to copy the record, try something like this. And so we do what's best for the composition in that moment.
Well, there's something cool, kind of like what you were talking about, how having a song and playing it once and then not playing it again, because in reality, even though the song has been written and kind of, and structured, it really takes on a life of its own when it's been played live numerous times, because you have that ability to expand on it, experiment, improvise and things like that.
Right, exactly.
So, go ahead.
That's what happens. That's what happened with a lot of the songs, like the song "Fear," which is an older song of mine. The song "Help Me." So yeah, that's right.
So when I first heard you was back in 1990 when I was sophomore in high school with Fever Dream, and guitar for the practicing musician was still a thing. It was still a big thing for me, and there were what I considered the guitar gods. It was like Vi, Becker, Blue Saraceno, artists like that. Do you kind of look at that period now, or like look at the guitar period now and see that there isn't that kind of guitar hero aspect anymore to guitarists? And I don't see it like I used to see it in the 80s and the early 90s, but I was curious how you see it.
I think it's there, and it's very different. And, in a lot of ways, I think it's kind of gone next level to some degree. And the reason I say that, there's a lot of guitar players now that are very young, and they're on Instagram and they're on YouTube. And, they're doing some really incredible things on the instrument. These kids, and I call them kids just because they're not kids, but
it's relative.
As old as I am, they're kids. Yeah, so they evolved much faster than we did when we were young, because they had resources. So for me, I would have to listen to an Alan Holdsworth record and figure out what he's doing by kind of slowing it down, or it was very complicated to figure those things out. Maybe I'd get lucky and a magazine would throw some tab up, but now they can go on YouTube, and there's all these things. There's something called the Amazing Slow Downer, and you can take a track and slow it down and it still stays in tune. So these guys are able to figure stuff out and advance at a really quick rate, which is very interesting. So I think there still is that element of, insanely talented guitar players out there, but it is different. It's not, the guys aren't doing what we did. They're doing different things. And then the guys that are doing what we did, like the shredders, I mean, there's some insane shredding, out there if you go on Instagram, because I have that feed that comes up, and there's always some kind of crazy, guitar thing where it's like, wow, that's like, I used to think what I was doing, when I was 18 was like really, I don't want to say groundbreaking, but there was a thing with Shrapnel Records that if you did a solo, you had to have something in there that sounded like it was impossible to play.
Right, like all this craguy sweet picking and stuff.
How the hell are you playing that? Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
So that's still out there, but I guess the main thing that changed is popular music. Because when I was a teenager, the popular music had guitar solos and great guitar playing.
Yes.
And now, there's still great guitar players, but in the more popular stuff, they don't really showcase the guitar very much, compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. Because like you were talking about how things are different. Yeah, I've actually wonder sometimes if the younger kids, or like you said, kids, know how good they have it with YouTube and things like that. Because I remember getting the tabs for Dream of a New Day and just, sitting in my room and playing and going, fuck this, man, and then going and playing Highway to Hell. And now these kids are like on YouTube. Like I said, I'm looking at them and I'm like, God, you're 18. Like when I was 18, I was trying to read tab, man. You know what I mean? Like,
right, but that's what it is. So now, to them, probably, Fever Dream or whatever song you're talking about is their, Highway to Hell. They might look at that and be like, oh, that's Shrapnel stuff. That's easy. Check this out. I think there's an element of evolution there, which is good. It's exciting.
Oh, it really is, and so one of the things I noticed is that, which I actually really love, is that you're pretty active on social media, and I've noticed that you're good friends with Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden. So how did that friendship spark, and will they maybe be some collaborative stuff from you guys at some point?
Yeah, well, we have known each other for quite some time. I originally met Natalie, his wife. There's a place in Los Angeles called the Sunset Marquee, and they have a bar in there. It used to be called the Whiskey Bar, and a lot of times, I'd be recording, and then at night I'd want to step out, and that would be the place that I would go because there was a lot of musicians that would hang out there. And then I went there one night, and we started talking, and then we all went to dinner, and that's how we became friends. And they have a house in Malibu, and it's very close to my house. And so we became friends over the last more than 10 years. And the idea of collaborating is definitely, if you look at my Instagram, it's pretty obvious that something's brewing. So I don't want to reveal anything or talk too much about it, but if you were going to place a bet, I would secretly say, yeah, I think there's something's going to happen there. So it's pretty exciting. And I'm a big fan of Iron Maiden since I was a kid. I had 2 T-shirts that I would wear to school, and they were like these baseball jersey kind of shirts, black with white, 3/4 length sleeves. And
I had those too.
One was Number of the Beast, and then the other one was a Black Sabbath one that had a crystal ball and 666 in the middle of it. So
I had that one too, by the way.
It's kind of wacky to be friends with Adrian, knowing that how obsessed I was with Iron Maiden when I was a kid. So it's pretty surreal.
That is amazing, because I was a big fan of Adrian's ASAP album, Silver and Gold. Because I loved how he stepped out of Maiden and took over lead vocals, and to me it was kind of very reminiscent of your stuff. Only it was more of like a straight ahead rock kind of thing. So I'd love to hear something with you guys.
No, I think that you will sooner than you think.
Well, I'm going to put it all on red for that one then. So,
all right.
As a musician, we never stop learning. And one of the things I always thought is that, we could be taught something no matter what, no matter how long we're around. So if you could have a 15-minute sit down with any guitarist, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh, man. I guess Jimi Hendrix, right?
What about him was something that you'd like to unlock?
Well, I don't know specifically. I guess, just because he was in rock, the most innovative that I can think of as far as the timing and what was going on, and no one had played like that. Had that kind of spirit, and I don't know that I would want to be able to unlock anything. I just think that's just his personality. So to me, it would just be having an opportunity to be in a room with him.
Sometimes just being in someone's presence is like inspiring enough, if anything, just to kind of have a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, so much more comes out of that. I know a lot of musicians that are great, and it gets so oh yeah, we can jam and play together and what have you. Sometimes just talking to somebody, it can be more enlightening, getting to know them, personally, because then you really see where everything's coming from.
More so than just hearing them play a lick or something, because like you said, you get to really hear the personality. You get to hear maybe a story or something that inspired something.
That's right.
Well, so you've released a handful of dates for this tour, obviously in North America. Are we going to get to see you do more shows? Because, I sure as I want to see you back in Atlanta.
Yeah, and that's what we're working on. I know, the European dates are all up and being promoted, and the American dates, we just have like the first week or so that are up. Mm-hmm. So I know that they're working on a longer tour, and so they're putting it together. So the goal is to get down south and then come across and kind of end in California. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm anticipating. So hopefully it all works out.
Well, fantastic, man. Well, I'm looking forward to the tour, and hey, man, congratulations on making it 50 years and still putting out great music. As a fan, I really love it. So I appreciate all your just the great music you've made.
Oh, great. Well, thanks, man, and great talking to you.
You too, Richie. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for the interview. I'll talk to you next time.